I think it's good cinema. I consider it good cinema. You know, you sit there in a movie theater.
He's the architect of the modern thriller, the visionary who makes movies that blur the line between art and obsession. But Quentin Tarantino isn't just a director. He's a tyrant, a man who sees his films as sacred texts that cannot be compromised, questioned, or diluted. And when actors showed up thinking they could negotiate with genius, they learned a brutal lesson. Tarantino doesn't collaborate. He commands. At 62 years old, he's finally naming the 5 actors who made the critical mistake of challenging his vision. And what he reveals about these confrontations is the darkest truth in Hollywood. Sometimes greatness requires cruelty. This is the story of 5 actors who discovered that working with Quentin Tarantino means surrendering completely to his worldview. Because he doesn't make films for actors. He makes films for cinema itself. And if you can't serve that mission, you become an obstacle to be eliminated. Bruce Willis, the star who thought he was bigger than the vision. Pulp Fiction, 1994. A film that would change cinema forever. But behind the scenes was a war that almost destroyed the production. Bruce Willis came in believing he was the main character, that his star power meant his interpretation should matter, that Tarantino would bend to accommodate his approach. He was catastrophically wrong. Willis would constantly challenge Tarantino's direction, not politely, publicly, in front of the entire cast and crew. That doesn't make sense for my character, he'd say, or can we do it this way instead? Each time he was basically saying, your vision is less important than my understanding of myself. Tarantino's response was surgical. Willis was given minimal rewrites. His scenes were scheduled last so the entire crew could maintain momentum without his disruptions. And on the final day of shooting, Tarantino made a point. He wouldn't shoot Willis's close-ups. The camera would hold wide. Willis would be diminished by framing. That's not an accident. That's a message. After Pulp Fiction wrapped, Tarantino made one thing clear. Willis was done. No reunion projects, no cameos, no collaboration. Because Willis had proven he couldn't understand what Tarantino was building. He was too busy protecting his own image to serve the film. Jamie Foxx, the Oscar winner who let his ego overwrite his talent. Django Unchained, 2012. Foxx was supposed to be perfect for the role. An Oscar winner, a legitimate actor, someone with depth. But the moment cameras started rolling, something became clear. Foxx wasn't there to act. He was there to audition for the part of director. Foxx started making suggestions about everything. Script changes, scene structure, camera placement. According to crew members, he'd request opinions from producers, cinematographers, even grips. He was basically running a parallel production inside Tarantino's film. And for Tarantino, that was unforgivable. The tension boiled over during pre-production meetings. Foxx suggested that Django should show mercy toward his former masters at some point, that there should be a moment of forgiveness. To Tarantino, that was betrayal of the story's entire moral foundation. He responded with ice. If you can't understand that some wounds never heal, then you don't understand this character. Foxx got the message. He stopped suggesting. He started executing. But the damage was irreversible. After filming wrapped, Tarantino made sure the industry understood. Despite creating what many considered one of Foxx's finest performances, he would never work with him again. The film was a masterpiece because Tarantino had to break Foxx to make it, and he had no interest in repeating that process. Will Smith, the bankable star who wanted moral simplicity in a morally complex universe. Django was supposed to go to Will Smith first. Tarantino offered it. Smith was the biggest star on the planet, but during script discussions, Smith started negotiating. He wanted Django to show signs of redemption. He wanted the violence to be less graphic. He wanted the moral questions to be clearer. For Tarantino, these weren't creative suggestions. They were requests to neuter the entire film, to turn it into a conventional Hollywood narrative where the good guy wins decisively and morality is straightforward. That's exactly what Tarantino despises. The final breaking point came when Smith suggested that Django might choose reconciliation over revenge at some point. Tarantino's response was blunt. If that's what you think this character should do, then you don't understand the character at all. Smith walked. Officially, scheduling conflicts. Officially, creative differences. But the truth was simpler. Smith couldn't embrace Tarantino's moral complexity, and Tarantino would rather lose a megastar than compromise his vision. Spike Lee, the filmmaker who dared to challenge Tarantino's authority. This wasn't even a direct collaboration. This was war. When Django Unchained premiered, Spike Lee publicly criticized it. He didn't see it as a celebration of black resistance. He saw it as exploitation, as a white director using slavery as a backdrop for spectacle. His tweet became famous, "I'm black and I loved it. But that's because I can separate art from the artist's intention." But Tarantino was furious, and his response revealed something dangerous about him. Spike needs to shut the fuck up. He hasn't made a great film in 20 years. He's just mad because I'm making the black movies he wishes he could make. That wasn't a debate. That was destruction. That was Tarantino using his position to obliterate someone who questioned his moral authority. And from that moment forward, their paths never crossed. Not in industry panels, not in interviews, not even in mutual praise. Just silence. Cold, calculated silence. Uma Thurman, the collaborator whose sacrifice revealed Tarantino's true nature. This is the darkest story of all, because it wasn't about conflict. It was about betrayal wrapped in genius. Kill Bill's greatest scene was supposed to be destroyed by a car crash that Tarantino orchestrated. Thurman wanted a stunt double. It was safer. It was professional. But Tarantino refused. "It won't look right," he said. He needed her real face in the crash. Thurman resisted. She knew something was wrong. But Tarantino's intensity was overwhelming. His vision was absolute. Eventually, she gave in. And the moment she did, the car crashed. She lost control. The vehicle slammed into a tree. Her neck was damaged. Her knees were shattered. The accident could have killed her. For years, Tarantino covered it up. Harvey Weinstein buried the footage. Thurman stayed quiet. But in 2018, she finally spoke. And what her account revealed wasn't just negligence. It was a man so devoted to his vision that he was willing to sacrifice actors for authenticity. Tarantino tried to reconcile years later. He gave her the footage. They reached a detente, but they never worked together again. Because sometimes the damage is too deep, and sometimes genius and cruelty are so intertwined that you can't separate them. The pattern. What all 5 stories reveal is that Tarantino's hatred isn't personal. It's philosophical. He despises actors who prioritize their own interpretation over his vision, who want negotiations instead of surrender, who can't understand that his films operate in a moral universe that cannot be compromised. Willis wanted control. Fox wanted influence. Smith wanted moral simplicity. Lee wanted to question his authority. Thurman sacrificed her body for his vision. And in each case, Tarantino either broke them or erased them. He's built a legacy on the backs of actors who understood one fundamental truth. When you work with Tarantino, you're not making a film. You're serving a vision. And if you can't do that with complete devotion and zero negotiation, you're just another obstacle. At 62, Tarantino has made peace with his cruelty. He sees it as necessity, the price of genius. And the actors who worked with him, the ones who survived, the ones who created masterpieces, they understand too, that sometimes the most beautiful art requires the most brutal sacrifice. Subscribe to Golden Secrets for more untold Hollywood stories that reveal the truth behind cinema's most legendary figures. Because sometimes greatness isn't born from collaboration, it's born from the absolute refusal to compromise.